and welcome to Informed Entrepreneur Magazine. I'm Mike Baumstark. I'm a small business owner myself, and today I'm interviewing Rick Sarmiento, who is establishing a new campus of the former Manassas Assembly of God Church, which has just changed the name to Chapel Springs Church and Assembly of God. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Mike.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Now, what we're going to do is I'm just going to ask you some questions.
Sure.
I want to know about your background. I want to know what you're involved with now, where you're headed with this new venture, and that sort of thing. And it might seem unusual to the audience that we would interview a pastor of a church on a business magazine, but it turns out that Rick is involved with business owners. He's participating in some organizations that are dedicated to business owners, and so I think part of his ministry is going to be actually reaching out to people like you in the audience, so it seemed appropriate that we interview Rick for those purposes. So let me just start out with Rick. Where did you come from, physically, and how did you get here, as well as how did you get into this scenario you're in now of starting a new campus?
Certainly. Well, by trade, from graduation from college, I'm a product of the military.
Okay.
I spent 4 years active duty in the Army.
Okay.
After graduating from Norwich University. Spent 4 years active duty in Texas, Fort Hood, Texas. Enjoyed my time there. And when I left, I started in industry. So between the years 2000 and 2011, with the exception of 1 year when I was deployed for the Army, I spent it in industry. So my background is, while I've been a member of a church, I've not worked in the church my entire time since graduation.
Now, what was the industry?
Well, several. I worked in the CPG industry, couple consumer packaged goods. I worked for a company that you may be familiar with. They make soup in Camden, New Jersey.
Okay. Like Campbell's or something.
It'd be Campbell's Soup. Great company. I worked for a couple other Fortune 500 companies in the retail space. Target, most recently. Before that, the Home Depot.
Okay.
In that time, I earned my MBA, so I like to say I'm probably the hybrid pastor, where I've had more of my experience out in the secular marketplace as opposed to within the confines of the church.
Sounds like you're kind of a business pastor, business chaplain, almost kind of a person.
In some ways, yes.
Yes. Now, you said you worked for these organizations. What did you do for these organizations?
Sure. Coming out of the military, my skill set was very much in the operational role. Okay. My first role out of the military was as an analyst in the IT department for Campbell's Soup at their global headquarters in Camden. So I had a lot of experience working with the corporate office. I was specifically assigned as a relationship manager to their human resources, global human resources across the enterprise. So from that perspective, I really learned a lot about the high-level organization and how it watered down onto the floor, basically the factory floor, and working into the grocery stores from a very high level. My next role prior to coming here was with the Home Depot, and I worked very operationally. I don't know if you know Bob Nardelli of the Home Depot when he was with the Home Depot at the time.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was
CEO or something.
He was the CEO of Home Depot, and prior to that, he had come from GE. The product of everything good. In terms of great leadership, at least at the time. Well, he had this initiative to bring in folks out of the business out of the military and with some consultant experience. And
Smart.
I had some consultant experience with KPMG Consulting for a short time, and I began working with the Home Depot, learning to be one of their store managers. And the thought was for Bob Nardelli was to influence the organization such that you had folks from the outside with a completely different perspective than what had been traditionally the Home Depot chain of leadership. At the time, everything was homegrown. It was a company that was a startup back in the late 70s, and every leader, all the way up to the CEO, had been somebody that had worked from the floor, pushing a cart, all the way through their executive leadership. When Bob Nardelli came to the organization, he infused it with folks from the outside, folks that he thought would bring a bit of life to the company. He's since left, but even still, I think from my perspective, I learned much from my experience at the Home Depot, and it translated well to my next company when I worked with Target. Very much in the same role as a store manager there, operationally oriented, responsible for the full P&L for one of their locations.
Now, was that in its local area?
Yes, I was the store manager for the Culpeper Target.
Okay. Well, wow, you have a tremendous business background. What led you to head into pastoral work?
Sure. Well, to be quite honest, you always, for those of us that are in church work, our sense is there's a calling on our lives.
Yes.
And that's something that you just need to do. From the time I was a child, I can't deny the fact that this is where I've always felt I've belonged.
Yes.
Even though my education, my background didn't seem to necessarily line up, now a year into this experience at this church, I can look back in my, I guess my resume or even my experiences and say, everything has brought me to this point. From the time I was a young Army lieutenant, working as a consultant and working in retail, being responsible for large groups of people. In my last stint with Target, we were pretty much a startup. We were a brand new store operating, starting from the ground up, having to build a team, having to build a management or leadership structure, and that's very much what I'm doing right now in helping launch this other campus for this church.
It's a very interesting angle that, coming from your background, it seems to me that a church is in some respects a profitable organization, profit not being money necessarily,
Certainly.
but it's profitable with people's lives.
Certainly.
And would grow the better those people's lives are affected in a positive way, which is a very interesting. It's a nuance, but it's very interesting because that is really what a good business also does. It benefits people. I would think you'd be an outstanding leader for doing something like this, and I'm sure that's true, so you don't want to respond to that.
Sure.
I'll just let that go because I think it's true. But what were the mechanics of you becoming getting to this position? In other words, you're working at Target and somebody said, hey, by the way, we're starting a church, you could probably do it. What happened?
Well, I did need to give you a little backstory.
Okay.
With my time at Target, I'd worked a total of 6 years with Target, but I took a 1-year hiatus. I was deployed, recalled into military service.
And where'd you go?
I went to Iraq. As part of Operation Iraqi
Came
Freedom.
back safe.
Yep, all the fingers and toes are working. God just protected me, so I'm thankful for that.
Yes.
But in that year, I had time to reset and kind of rethink. Well, what are my life experiences? What have they been up to this point?
Mm-hmm.
And what are those things that really drive me?
Yeah.
And ultimately, and I love looking at P&L statements. I love studying productivity. I earned an MBA, and that was, again, the lifeblood of what you study as a business person is, well, how do you not only drive the top line, but how do you grow the bottom line? And to me, those are the things that resonate in me. Well, how does that pair up with my experience in coming to become a pastor? Well, number one, it's about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships in business, in the church, at home, apart from anything that you do, relationships drive everything.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you, it was simply somebody asking me. The man who was in the office right behind us, the senior pastor of this church, has been Pastor Scott Lyde.
Uh-huh.
Tremendous leader. He's led this organization for the last going on 11 years as the senior pastor. Has been at this church for almost 25 years. Tremendous leader. But I know him from long ago. I grew up in Chicago, and he was my youth pastor. So I've had a relationship with this man all my life, and he's been a mentor to me. When somebody asks and builds a relationship with you, somebody that you trust, it changes everything. When somebody asks, that not only does it confirm that calling on your life, but gives you the sense of security and certainty that, this is something that can work, will work, and will be fully supported.
Yes, outstanding. All right, so tell me what it is you're actually doing. How are you spending your time right now, and what is the immediate goal ahead of you?
Sure. Well, I wear two hats at Chapel Springs Church, and as you mentioned, we just completed a rebranding, renaming of the church.
I like it, by the way. I think it's pretty cool.
Thank you. And it really factors into what we're doing.
Do me a favor.
Yes.
Just quickly, it was called Manassas Assembly of God, and we've changed the name to Chapel Springs. Just a brief reason.
Sure.
Because.
Well, we are a church that is becoming one church in multiple locations.
Okay.
It's called the multi-site strategy.
Yes.
Very much like a franchise, if you want to put it in those terms. With that, the name Manassas Assembly of God, and for many of our folks that have come here or are familiar with us, the tagline, we were MAG. We love acronyms in this area, so we've been MAG for many years.
Yes.
But Manassas has been restrictive in terms of it no longer really accurately describes who we are.
Yes.
12 years ago, we moved onto this property, which isn't in Manassas anymore. We're in Bristow.
Yes.
And to move into another area or multiple areas, which is the vision for what we're doing with this multi-site strategy, Manassas Assembly of God, or MAG, won't quite fit on
Yeah.
a door or on the stoop of a building in where we're going in our first stop in Stafford.
Yes, okay. And also, Pastor Scott, I was at one of the services recently, and he talks about the fact that there is actually a spring
Yes.
on the property. Tell me about that.
Yes. Well, when we moved onto this property 12 years ago, we purchased about 155 acres that go all the way down the railroad tracks
Okay.
here in Bristow. Within the property, and just outside of the boundaries of the property, there's a natural spring.
Okay, interesting.
And it's a name that just resonated with the leadership. And we have Charlie Bird is one of the longtime members of what was Manassas Assembly of God. A little bit of a hobby historian. Was reading some articles, did some map research on the area, the actual property. And what he found was an article in a mid-1800s newspaper of the Alexandria Gazette that lists this property for sale and talks about this spring, this faithful spring. And it happened to be near a church that was here in that century, a white chapel, and it got the name Chapel Spring. So it seemed very natural for us to, there's a spiritual metaphor that is tied to water, tied to the spring, and
Yes.
it just seems so much a part of what
Jesus
we are
said
planning to do.
living water, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Jesus said many of those things, and you look at in the Old Testament, there are several instances where it talks about bringing water to dry and thirsty lands, bringing water to those that need
It's
it.
a wonderful analogy.
Yes.
I just, when Pastor Scott described it, I thought, man, that's like handing you a wonderful name for this place that is just completely natural and appropriate.
Right. And there's a lot that goes to a name. It lends itself very well to where we're going, as you suggested.
Yes.
And when we go multi-site,
Yeah.
part of
You just take some of the water with you and you go.
absolutely, you bring it to the dry and
Exactly.
thirsty land. Those people that need it. Jesus described himself as the living water, and
Yes.
we want to bring that living water to those that would need Jesus.
Yeah, I would just take a bowl from the spring and sprinkle on the new properties that you all establish and just say, now we're all one. That'd be pretty awesome. Okay, so you're gonna go to Stafford. Tell me the status of that right now.
Right. Well, right now we're in the process of putting a team together to help launch this campus.
Okay.
And the terminology used, we're planting a church, but
Yeah.
we're planting a church a little bit on steroids.
Kind of a branch.
That's right,
Yeah.
a branch. So we're taking a team of about 150 people from this congregation to begin a new work in another part of the county, and really in Stafford County. Where we're at right now is we're going with our public launch in October. October
Okay.
6th is our official launch date.
Okay.
But in the interim, we want to get some services in where we're learning how to do church remotely. We are going to be a video venue, so we're
Yes.
sending our message via the internet to the other location. We will have live worship, live classes. We have classes for our children, but the worship experience, the service experience will be video. About 99% of the time, oftentimes, or the 1% of the time that we don't go video venue, I'll either be preaching or team preaching with Pastor Scott, and it's a new way of getting the gospel out. We believe that the gospel is timeless, the Word of God, whether it's on tape, whether it's on digital, it has legs.
Yes.
And we certainly believe that this is something that God can redeem the technology to help us bring the message out beyond the context of Bristow, Prince William County.
Fantastic. Now, have you decided on any sort of location or center
Yes.
area?
Yes. Right now, we are partnering with a company that's in Michigan, Portable Church Industries, and they specialize in working with churches that are in our situation that don't have a facility of their own. So we will be leasing a facility from the school system down in Stafford County on Sundays for several hours during the day. And essentially, we will carry the entire contents of what it takes to run a weekend service in a 24-foot trailer. We'll transport our trailer from wherever the location is to that school. We will be meeting at Shirleyheim Middle School right in Stafford County. And unpacking that trailer, conducting a worship service, and at the end of the service, pack it all back up and it goes back in the trailer. And while that is an important part of the church experience, our worship experience, we believe that church is more than just the Sunday service where we have an hour and a half. We believe that church is the other 6 days. And it's really about what I talked about earlier. It's about relationships, building genuine relationships where Christ is the center of those relationships. And that's what we hope to do. And you mentioned it earlier, part of building those relationships are knowing those that are in the marketplace, that are in the schoolhouse, those that are part of that community. And we would believe that the only way you really grow a congregation or grow in a church is understanding the mission. And we believe in the mission, and the mission is to help people follow Jesus. And the only way to do that is get to know where they are, where they're at, what their needs are.
Yeah, the Northern Virginia Business Owners Council, which you've been playing a part, it'd really be cool to me to see your campus out there kind of packed with business owners and their families.
Oh, we would love it.
That would be awesome, because you are certainly uniquely qualified, I think, to minister to that group. You know, business owners have a perspective that is very different from the average person. Business owners have to be thinking kind of all the time. They've got to be dealing in reality all the time. They've got to actually be looking at hard dollars and how it's going.
Certainly.
They're thinking about their families. They're trying to take care of their children. And a ministry where business owners would feel welcome and feel understood would be really awesome. I mean, I think I could refer business owners to be involved.
Well, Mike, we would love to have them. We are set in a very neat community, highly influenced by the military and,
Yes.
and folks that work for the government. We're right outside the gates of Quantico, and you know,
Right.
selection of people is everything. And we mentioned relationships, but your credibility is based on many times on just who you are.
Yes.
If you can talk the business, the language of business, it's easy to communicate. If you have any credibility or any tie to the military, sometimes that's in and of itself enough for somebody at least to give you a chance.
Yeah.
So again, my sense is leverage everything that you are. And I can't, you know, I go back to my own personal history. I can't imagine all of my experiences going to waste. And my sense is that God has used them and He will redeem them for such a time as this. And my sense is that, you know, God's gonna do something really, really cool down there. I'm glad to be part of it.
Yeah.
We would love businessmen and women to join us with their families, because what they'll see is really a startup. It's like a startup company. And even in the context of where I used to work, starting it from scratch. And there's something neat about starting something from the ground up.
Yes.
And really, even though we're taking a team of 150 people from here, we want to do more than just that. We want to reach a community. We want to bless a community. And, you know, a benchmark of success for us, and really and truly, isn't to be that 150 people from here. We want to be part of that community and have people from that community join that congregation, which
Yes.
we believe is our sense of mission, helping people follow Jesus, even in Stafford County.
Yes. Well, your military history, your military connection, could be a real blessing to the Quantico area. You know, I'm sure there's churches out there, but it'd be really a wonderful thing if Quantico itself
Certainly.
developed a relationship with you all, and you could minister to some of these soldiers that maybe
Right.
didn't come back with all their extremities,
Sure.
or came back very hurt emotionally. It's kind of near and dear to my heart. So, I mean, I'm a military
Right.
retiree myself from the Navy.
Mhm.
And the military is dear to my heart, because once you've been in that family, you kind of never leave those
Certainly.
feelings about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So hopefully that would be a nice connection also. Well, I hope that the Business Owners Council, Informed Entrepreneur Magazine, can help you do what you're trying to accomplish. We'll do our best to help you.
Well, I appreciate it. Being, you know, attending the breakfast, you know, understanding what the Business Council is all about, has a lot of application beyond just
Mhm.
being part of it. My sense is it's not just, there are the relationships, but there are a lot of things that lend themselves well to operating a startup.
Yes.
In many ways, even though we are a church, you know, there are dollars and cents that are involved. There are people, there are relationships, and to be honest with you, entrepreneurs, this is the heart of what they do. And there's much to be learned from an entrepreneur, somebody at the startup. And there's something to common suffering, I suppose. I guess,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, understanding what that means. And my sense is, you know, I could learn from them as much as I could maybe even show, or, you know, and again, we are an open book. We want to be as transparent as possible.
Yes.
And my sense is, you know, just like me, you know, what gifts do you have? Jesus talks about he has a parable about the talents, and my sense is that everybody has a gift, and everybody's a talent. We might not be the best singers, we might not be the best speakers, but you have something to contribute. And when you can find that gift in everybody, that's what makes a church. That's what makes the body of Christ operate. When people can operate in their gifts, no matter how little, how small, it is the body of Christ when we can minister and serve one another.
Absolutely. You're probably aware of a book by Phil Yancey, The Jesus I Never Knew, which one of the main premises of that book was that everybody ran to Jesus and they tend to run from church. And so what kind of delights me about what you're expressing is, it looks like you might be able to be out of the box enough with like the CEO of Nardelli, was it?
Nardelli.
Nardelli, who went out of the box to improve the organization. It seems to me that you have a real good chance of being out of the box and relating in a different way than just, I went to Bible college and I went to seminary and here I am. I think this could be really awesome. I wish you great success.
Well, I appreciate that. I certainly, we literally are leaving this box, this 100,000 square foot box to go somewhere else in a different way. And yet, I can't help but think this is how Jesus did it. He was a church planner. He was a guy that believed in taking the message outward. And, first, do in Jerusalem, then Judea, then the uttermost parts of the world. Well, we're just going to Judea. It's not quite all the way across the world at this point. It's just in another county. And my sense is we're just doing what he's told us to do.
Yeah, it's wonderful. If you'd like to know more about Rick or even get in contact with Rick after viewing this interview, the credits at the end will give you some contact information so you can find more out about Chapel Springs, both here at the main location and at the new location out in the Stafford area. Rick, I've really enjoyed talking with you. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it.
I wish you the best.
Thank you.